I know we're a day early, guys, but welcome to Believers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to this live edition of Believers Talk. Like I said, I know it's Wednesday. Normally we go live on Thursday. I still do plan on going live tomorrow as well. We'll talk some NFL Combine, things like that tomorrow. However, I wanted to get on here today because, guys, there are some things going on at One Bills Drive today that has us all kind of a little excited about what's going to happen with our Buffalo Bills, right, in the future, what this means for the Buffalo Bills future. We have some coaching staff changes we could talk about, and obviously I'm going to talk about anything you guys want to talk about in the chat. We can talk a little bit about the combine, but I do want to do that again tomorrow as well when we go live. Elliot, how you doing? What's up, buddy? Let's go Buffalo. Absolutely making some changes here, and we're going to talk about those changes a little bit. I want to wait to get some people in here. So again, guys, thank you for joining me on Believers Talk. If you're new to the channel, or if you've been around a couple times and you just haven't yet hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and go ahead and leave a comment. Like I said, I love talking to you guys in the comment section. You really are what keeps this channel going. So again, I appreciate you guys. I create a highlight video. I'm just learning some of this new stuff on this new YouTube creation app. So going live, pop-ups are coming up, so it's kind of fun. But again, guys, thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about Leslie Frazier. Obviously, we're going to talk about some of the other coaching changes that were made by the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk about Brandon Beane, talking about Tre White, what he said on WGR earlier today, and what that could potentially mean. And again, we can talk a little bit about the combine. Don't expect to be on here too long this evening. Again, normally don't go live on Wednesdays. Normally I go live on Thursdays, and I still plan on going live tomorrow. So if you're new to the channel, go ahead, after you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We'll notify you when we are giving out and putting out new content. Try to get on here throughout the work week, and of course bringing you breaking Buffalo Bills news. And as we get closer to free agency, which starts March 18th, the tampering period officially starts March 16th. As we get closer to the NFL draft, obviously there's going to be a lot of breaking Buffalo Bills news. So you want to make sure you're staying in contact right here on Believers Talk for all the breaking news. And again, thank you very much for joining me. If you haven't already hit that thumbs up, hit that thumbs up, as I'm still trying to get used to these new live features in YouTube. So again, I do apologize if there's a disconnect. Anthony's in the room. Hey Anthony, how you doing? Welcome to Believers Talk. Glad you can join me as well. Guys, not sure if you realize this or not, but if you look, this face is a little new. And we're looking to add some more to it. So you're going to see some things probably added, removed from the backdrop behind me. Things are going to look a little different here and there, but I promise you it's going to be the same great content. Elliot comes in and says, good move for Frazier's career, but I worry that he will get poached when we have another stellar defense against what should be one of the hardest schedules. I mean, look, our schedule is very tough, right? You're talking about games against Kansas City, against San Fran. Still got to play the division games, of course. Got to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's going to be a tough game. Got to play the Seahawks, the Rams. Those offenses can be explosive. Got to play the LA Chargers, whoever their quarterback is going to be. So obviously, it looks like it could be a very tough schedule for the Buffalo Bills if that defense has another outstanding performance. What does that mean for Leslie Frazier now that he's made the assistant head coach? And we're going to talk about what all that entails too, right? Now that Leslie Frazier is the assistant head coach, what all does that really mean? Does that really mean anything, or is that just a title that gets put on him and doesn't really mean much? We have Yvonne coming in the room. Go Bills from beautiful San Diego. Surfs up. Welcome, Yvonne. Thank you for joining me on Believers Talk. Again, always appreciate all you guys coming in here. So go ahead, hit that thumbs up button, like this video. We're going to talk about all this and the Tre White thing, so make sure that you stick around. And again, if you have a comment, leave it in the comment section. If you would like me to read something that I'm not reading, or if the comments are going by too fast, hit that super chat button. You will definitely get precedence over everybody else, and I really do appreciate it. All of that money goes directly into this channel to provide you with the best Buffalo Bills coverage. Anthony comes in. When did all the news come out last year? During the tampering period, or was it when free agency started? Well, really, for some of the bigger names, it is during that tampering period. I expect we'll know where Amari Cooper's going shortly after the tampering period begins. For the Buffalo Bills, most of it didn't occur until after in this case the 18th, after the season officially started. So I look back at my videos from last year, because remember guys, I did a video on every single Buffalo Bills free agent, and now I could have waited to do them until the league year started. Even if you hear something in the tampering period, you don't want to do a video saying he's officially with the Bills, because it has happened in the past. It's rare, but it has happened in the past where a player has agreed in principle on March 16th with one team, but that by March 18th, another team's got his attention, and he poo-poos the deal that he previously made, and then he goes ahead and signs with another team. Now, normally as a player, you don't want to do that. You don't want to burn bridges in the NFL, but that has happened on occasion. So it's possible that I waited, even though we heard rumors of such things, that I waited until March 18th until it was official. But a lot of my videos were not posted until March, whatever the date was last year, as far as the tampering period versus the league year beginning. So I'm not sure when it's going to happen this year. And with every free agent, it's different, right? Every free agent's different. You just never know when you're going to hear. I mean, there are some people who said that during this past week at the NFL Combine, you have agents talking behind closed doors with some of these GMs and coaching staff and things like that. So, and that, technically it's illegal, but if the NFL can't prove it, what really are they going to do about it, right? So you never know when this is going to start, but you have to believe the tampering period pretty much already started at the NFL Combine. So let's talk about Leslie Frazier. Again, guys, if you're just coming into the room, thank you for joining me. And again, if you haven't already hit that thumbs up button, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Notifies you whenever we post new content. Again, we'll be bringing you breaking news throughout the offseason, giving you live play-by-play of every single Buffalo Bills game during the regular season, whether it be myself or the guys over at Hashtag Sports. Paul Mario do a great job. So either way, check us out. And like I said, subscribe. Yvonne, I am Buffalo native from Hamburg, New York. Miss it? Well, you know, I think from San Diego, right? I mean, I think you have nicer weather, that's for sure, but I'm sure that you do. And you know what? I've always thought about the West Coast, as I'm here on the East Coast as well. What I've always thought about the West Coast is, man, it'd be so great to be there for football Sundays. You get to wake up 10 a.m., yeah, football, and then it goes into 1 p.m., yeah, football at 1 p.m., and then you can still go to the beach, maybe watch Sunday Night Football later, but you can still have some time at the beach, enjoy the sun. I always thought that would be cool if I lived out west, but here I am in the East, so it's a 1, 4, and 8 o'clock start time. Not really a lot of time after your Sundays to go out and do anything other than have a couple drinks. And sometimes the Bills make us want to drink, right? Sometimes the Bills just make us want to drink, but lately it's been getting better. So we want to first talk about Leslie Frazier, who has been promoted. Not only is he now the defensive coordinator, but he is the assistant head coach. And I know a lot of you are thinking, or some of you are thinking, if you're watching this on the replay, you might be thinking, well, what does that really mean? Like I said, that's just a tag that they're putting on Leslie Frazier. And as Bills fans, that's what we're hoping it is, right? We're hoping that it's just a tag put on Leslie Frazier, but he's mainly still focusing on that great Buffalo Bills defense, and there's not too much pressure on him. And you have to think that this is a good spot for Leslie Frazier too. Leslie Frazier was a head coach in the NFL, so he knows the responsibilities of being a head coach. In fact, during Combine Week, Coach McDermott, today I believe it was, actually said that when he came in as a head coach for the Buffalo Bills, he wanted to bring someone along who had head coaching experience. That was very important to Coach McDermott, as someone who was going to be a first-time head coach, to bring someone in who had head coaching experience, who kind of show him the ropes. And earlier today on I think it was one of the radio shows, Coach Leslie Frazier came on and talked about how he felt it was his job to help Coach McDermott out, teach him some things, help him not to make the mistakes that Coach Leslie Frazier made when he was a first-year head coach. And really, you look at those two, and they've really they've really been together for most of this trip, these 3 years, right? Leslie Frazier has been Coach McDermott's right-hand man for most of the past 3 years. We saw I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, when the defense was struggling, we saw Coach McDermott take over the reins for a half and then give it back to Leslie Frazier the next game. So we've seen them work together cohesively, but what does it mean now that Coach Leslie Frazier has been officially made the assistant head coach to Coach McDermott? Well, in the grand scheme of things, Coach Leslie Frazier now has to know the game plan every game day, not just for the defense, but for the offense and special teams too. So although his main focus is still going to be on the defense, you figure if Coach McDermott gets injured on the sidelines during a game, if for some reason there's something going on in his personal life, Coach McDermott's personal life, where he cannot coach the Buffalo Bills, whether it be during a game, whether it be during practice, whether it be during training camp, whatever it is, Leslie Frazier now takes over that position. If for whatever reason Coach McDermott gets suspended, something like that, then Leslie Frazier is now the Buffalo Bills head coach for that interim period. And also you have to remember that this move by the Buffalo Bills wasn't done by Coach McDermott, although Coach McDermott probably gave his stamp of approval. This was done by the GM, Brandon Beane, by ownership, saying, no, we trust Leslie Frazier this much. So if for some reason, I'm not going to say that's going to happen because I love our coach, Coach McDermott, but for some reason the Buffalo Bills struggle this year, he ends up on the hot seat and then gets fired, whatever the interim period is, that would be Coach McDermott's time to be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Let me go ahead and read some of these comments going on right here. Elliot says, I'm from Saratoga area, but now in Florida. I miss it, but love where I'm at. Elliot, Bills trending up 100%. Absolutely. We have a great Buffalo Bills bar here. Lots of Buffalo Bills fans, Bills backers in San Diego. That's awesome. Wherever you go, you see Bills Mafia coming out, and it's just really cool to see, guys. This Bills Mafia is one of the teams that travels really well. You know, everyone hears about the Steelers traveling well. Everyone hears about some others. Dallas travels well. The Buffalo Bills are not far behind, if not ahead, of some of these teams as far as how well they travel. If you went to that Steelers game on Sunday Night Football, you saw a lot of Bills fans there, and that's awesome to see, especially in that game, because after the game, of course, we're celebrating a playoff berth, and you see the Bills fans in the crowd. It's just really cool to see. Even in that Thanksgiving game in Dallas, you saw a lot of Bills fans there as well. In the post game, when they spoke with Josh Allen, you saw a lot of Bills fans in the stands, so that was really cool to see. So the Bills travel really well. It's good to see that you find yourself a great place to be in San Diego. Maybe one day I can make out to San Diego and hang out with you guys. I would love to do that. That's something I always want to do, is hang out with Bills Mafia, be part of the people, because that's where I am, man. I'm just part of Bills Mafia, trying to give everyone the breaking news as it comes out of our Buffalo Bills. Again, thank you guys for joining us. Daniel's in the room. Hey, Daniel, how you doing? Good to see you. Elliot writes, Frazier has been awesome ever since McD pulled that move. He has. McDermott pulled that move, I believe it was early last season. Correct me if I'm wrong. And by last season, I mean 2018. Not 2019, but it could have been 2019 too. Coach McDermott pulls the playbook away from Leslie Frazier at halftime, takes over in the second half. The defense improves, and then he gives the book back to Leslie Frazier on Monday and says, hey, I'm just saying I'm here to help if you need it. And that's what a head coach should do. A head coach should know when to take control of any unit and say, no, I got this. If you can't handle it, I got this. And do a good job. And then when you get a chance, talk to that coordinator and say, okay, do you understand what we did here? Do you understand what works, what doesn't work? And then let them take control. That's what any boss should do in any position, right? The boss isn't there to do your job, but the boss is there to show you how to do your job right if you're struggling. And then eventually, if you don't get it, you're fired. You get let go. Now in the NFL, obviously, it moves a lot quicker. These parts move a lot quicker than in most regular businesses, but it's the same theory in business and any job. You teach someone how to do a job. If they do it well, you keep them. If they struggle at times, that's when you pick up the slack for them and you show them how to get the job done. And then they take over again and say, yeah, I got this, no big deal. And that's what Leslie Frazier has done. In 3 years, we've had 2 of those seasons. We've had a top 3 defense, including last year when we were number 1 in pass defense. I think this is a great move by the Buffalo Bills. Let me get to some comments. Daniel comes in. The Frazier promotion was a thank you and to help him get more head coach consideration, in my opinion. Elliot, tons of Mafia in Florida. If you're ever down here, beers on me. Elliot, I might take you up on that. I don't know if I'll ever get to Florida anytime soon, but when I do, I'll definitely hit you up. It sounds like a great time. It was the Chargers game, says Daniel, for that move that Leslie Frazier or Coach McDermott had with Leslie Frazier. You will love it here in San Diego. Bills Mafia is growing big. That's great to hear. Unfortunately for people who live in San Diego, obviously it doesn't affect you being from Buffalo, losing their team last season. They needed a place to go. there's plenty of room on the Bills bandwagon, right? There's plenty of room to hop on. Listen, if no one circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills, there's plenty of room on that wagon for people from San Diego, for people from St. Louis, for people from wherever they want around the world to jump on. Because hey, this bus is moving. This bus is moving, and this bus is moving. This is trending, as Elliot said, in the right direction. So if you want to get on the Buffalo Bills bus, now is the time to do it. Again, guys, thank you for joining me on Believers Talk. If you haven't already hit that thumbs up button, be sure to smash that like button. Really helps out the channel, and I really do appreciate it. And again, always be sure to leave a comment in these live streams. I really do appreciate it. But Coach Leslie Frazier was not the only job that was switched today in the for coaches, right? The Buffalo Bills signed some more coaches as well. So I want to make sure I get to those. Also, give those players the credit that they are, those coaches the credit that they are due. So let me get to that in a second here. As soon as I get to it, I will let you know. Obviously, again, just getting used to some things on my phone. This bandwagon about to get ridiculous once Alex reaches his final form. I hope that happens soon. Scott Blakely, how you doing? Glad to see you in the room. Yeah, Leslie Frazier, well deserved. I'm glad that he got the promotion that he deserved. And again, hopefully it's not a big deal. Hopefully it's just a pat on the back. Hopefully it's just a few extra dollars in Leslie Frazier's pocket. Because guys, I do believe that if the Buffalo Bills defense has an outstanding year, he should be considered for the head coach for a head coaching vacancy. I'm actually surprised that he wasn't already. I feel like that he has proven that he's ready to be a head coach. You heard him today on the radio show say that he is ready to become the head coach if it comes down to that. So let me go ahead and go through these coaching changes. Again, Coach Leslie Frazier, he's now moved to defensive coordinator and assistant head coach. You have Mark Lubick as assistant wide receiver coach, game management. Jimmy Salgado is named the nickel coach. Shea Tierney is the assistant quarterbacks coach, and Ryan Wendell, assistant offensive line coach. So those were the moves today made at one Bill Drive. Again, you have Leslie Frazier moving from defensive coordinator to defensive coordinator / assistant head coach. And like I said, guys, hopefully that's just a job title thing. Hopefully that's something that just puts some extra money in Leslie Frazier's pocket. We don't want Leslie Frazier to ever have to take over the reins for Coach McDermott, because more than likely that means something bad happened. Like I said, an injury on the field to Coach McDermott where he can't be on the sideline. Even, and I think we've seen this before with coaches. I think maybe Detroit's coach had to do this for a little bit last year in the preseason, where they get injured, they have to go up to the booth, and then the assistant head coach is the guy who's calling the timeouts for the team, things like that. So again, the assistant head coach always has to know the team strategy going into it, because I know that he's controlling the defensive strategy as is, but you have to have a full team concept, right? As far as offense, defense, special teams. What's your full team concept? And that's something that Leslie Frazier wasn't really a part of until now. Right now, Leslie Frazier not only has to worry about the defensive side of things, but he has to ask Brian Daboll, hey, what's going on with the offense? What's the offensive strategy for this game, this team, whatever the case might be? Talk to the special teams coach. Say, hey, what is our strategy for special teams? Are we going to let Andre Roberts loose a little bit more in this game due to the opposing team's special teams, or are we going to take those touchbacks when we get them and just start on the 25? You need to know those things. You need to scheme those things out. You need to know when's a good time to pull Josh Allen to the side and give him a talk, whatever he needs to hear. But then you also have to lean on Brian Daboll a little bit more, right? Let's say Coach McDermott can't coach for whatever reason, personal reason at home, suspension, injured on the field, whatever the case might be. You have to be able to rely on your offensive coordinator, in this case Brian Daboll, and you have a great quarterbacks coach in Ken Dorsey to be able to rely on them. And like I said, for Leslie Frazier, this is a great job because he's already been a head coach in the NFL. He knows what it takes to get the job done. So again, Leslie Frazier, I think this is a great hire for the Buffalo Bills, or at least a great promotion for the Buffalo Bills. And I think that you have the right man for the job. Let me get to some comments here. I felt like Frazier kind of was the assistant coach already. Elliot, I agree with you. Actually, it was funny. Buffalo Fanatics tweeted something earlier. Guys, follow me on Twitter if you're not following me already on Twitter. Twitter.com/Believers Talk. I try to keep you up to date there as well. But yeah, I saw Facebook on Twitter. I mean, I'm on Facebook too, by the way. But on Twitter, Buffalo Fanatics tweeted something out about the coaching move. The Buffalo Bills hiring Leslie Frazier as their assistant head coach. And I actually responded. I said, who was the assistant head coach before? Because last year, if you would have asked me who's the Buffalo Bills assistant head coach, I actually would have said, I don't know, probably Leslie Frazier, because I felt the same thing. I felt like they were pretty much hand in hand working together. And so it's good to see this partnership finally kind of come together and you see it finally pan out. And like I said, adds a little more responsibilities to Leslie Frazier, but it also, and as someone said in the comment section, it also shows how much the Buffalo Bills want to keep Leslie Frazier here as long as they can. We have to respect the idea that he wants to be a head coach again in the NFL, right? That's like the biggest job that you could have if you're a football coach. But for now, we want to keep him here, we want to keep him happy, and we want to keep him motivated to continue to do better for the Buffalo Bills. And maybe one day he will get that head coaching opportunity. Maybe it's as soon as next season. But we know we have him for this year, so let's keep the ball rolling on this year. Just hope that when we win the division, he avoids interviews prior to us winning the Super Bowl, hopefully, or if not, before we lose the playoff games. I would hate to see him have an interview. Like Brian Dable, I wasn't a fan of seeing him being interviewed if we would have won that wild card game, being interviewed the day after or the Monday after. I wasn't a fan of that. I wanted to wait until the season was over for the Buffalo Bills before I saw any of that. Now, unfortunately for the Bills, the season was over by that time, but still, I think you guys understand my point. I don't want our assistant coaches to say, oh, I know I have this playoff game to get ready for, but let me get ready for an interview as well for a head coaching job. I'm just not a fan of that for any team. You got to look at the Colts job 2 years ago when they went with Frank Reich. Yeah, he did get an interview there as well. I hope Dable stays in the booth. I'll buy the Chex Mix. You're buying my beer. You're buying his Chex Mix. I think we're going to have a good time no matter what's going on. What's the game management position? Interesting emphasis, asks Scott, like the president, vice president. So game management, I'm guessing, for Mark Lubick, and again, I haven't read into it much. So he's the assistant wide receivers coach, and if you're telling me that he's the game management coach, I'm guessing that he's up in the booth with Brian Dable, right? And he's the guy that's keeping track of time on the clock. He's the guy that's maybe giving Coach McDermott an earful saying, hey, you should challenge this one. You know, he might be the challenge flag guy when you're talking about game management. He might be the guy constantly reminding Sean McDermott in his ear, whether it be on the field or up in the booth, hey, you have two timeouts. If as soon as he takes time out, hey, you only have one timeout left. Or maybe he sees a play clock situation, right, where there's only 10 seconds left on the play clock. Now, if you remember, guys, the play clock cuts out in the quarterback's ear with 15 seconds to go. So he doesn't hear the coaches saying, hey, there's only 5 seconds on the play clock. So maybe the game manager can yell down to Coach McDermott, hey, 5 seconds on the play clock, 5 seconds on the play clock, call timeout, or something along those lines. Because on the sideline, if it works the same way it does in high school, Coach McDermott is actually the only person on the sideline who can call that timeout. But he has so much going on, it's really hard to focus on when is and isn't a good time to call a timeout. So when I see or hear game manager, I think of those type of things like challenge flags, timeouts, how much time's on a play clock, how much time's left in a game, situational football. Because as a coach, you're looking at a lot of things. You might not be thinking about the obvious things, the things you're supposed to be thinking about. And so maybe Coach McDermott's sick and tired of us giving him a hard time about the challenges that he uses, so maybe he's hiring someone else to blame it on, although I don't think that's Coach McDermott's type, right? He's not going to be someone to throw another coach under the bus. He's going to always take the heat for his mistakes. But that's Mark Lubick, assistant wide receiver coach, game management coach. Jimmy Salgado got a promotion to nickel coach, so it'll be interesting to see how much we run that nickel. We know how much the Buffalo Bills love to run the nickel defense, that nickel package. We know Coach McDermott has that strong nickel package that he likes to run, so maybe having a nickel coach, a coach just for that package to help the players out, to know what position they need to be in. A pretty good idea there by the Buffalo Bills. Shea Tierney, assistant QB coach. Again, he's going to be working under Ken Dorsey. This will give Ken Dorsey more flexibility if he wants to be up in the booth with Brian Daboll and see things from the aerial point of view, or if he wants to be down the field, he can have Shea Tierney as the assistant go up in the booth and tell him things over the radio that he's seeing out of Josh Allen or that he's seeing by the defense as well. So that way you have extra men up in the booth to just check out other things while Brian Daboll's trying to run the offense. I think it's just to help out Brian Daboll, and I look forward to seeing how it works out. And this can only help Josh Allen, right? This could only be good for Josh Allen. So I look forward to see possible more growth from Josh Allen. But it will be interesting to see how Shea and Ken Dorsey work together. Obviously, I believe that if you're going to make someone the assistant head coach or assistant quarterbacks coach, you want to make sure that he works well with the quarterbacks coach. So I'm sure Ken Dorsey gave Shea his stamp of approval. But I think this is only going to help Josh Allen as he has now two guys to go to, especially in the offseason. Ken Dorsey might be busy with Matt Barkley. Ken Dorsey might be busy with his own personal life. And so this gives Josh Allen another contact to say, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I think I need help with. Be interesting to see what happens there. And then you have Ryan Wendell, assistant offensive line coach. Guys, we know that we replaced our offensive line coach last season, so now we get an assistant line coach in to help out with that situation. Let's get to the comments. Elliot comes in, drop a like. Absolutely, guys, hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate you guys joining me on Billievers Talk. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, normally go live on Thursday. I still plan to do that tomorrow. We're going to talk about the NFL Combine a little bit more in depth. If you haven't already checked out Cover One's coverage in my video earlier today, I talked about it. They did a great job. I talked about the players that the Buffalo Bills interviewed, the whole interview process. Talked about that on today's episode, dropped earlier today, this morning. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. Let me get some comments. What, like the president, vice president, Scott Billievers, so what did we have to say to Tre? So today on WGR 550, Brandon Beane was a special guest on one of the radio shows, so we can get into that a little bit. And they talked about the possibility of an extension for Tre'Davious White. Obviously, I think the best cornerback in the game, but obviously that's part of the discussion when you're talking about contract negotiations. So let's get into what Brandon Beane had to say about that situation. Give me 1 second and I'll get into that as well. So I think a lot of Bills fans expect for the Buffalo Bills to extend Tre'Davious White. Now the question is, and this was the question posed to Brandon Beane on the radio show, asked by Howard Simon, is do the Buffalo Bills want to extend Tre'Davious White this offseason, or do they want to keep him on that rookie contract, that controllable contract this year and next year when we can get that fifth-year option? So let's go over Brandon Beane's response to this. And let's remember that right now, he's a GM of the Buffalo Bills. He needs to try to keep the cards close to the chest, right? I mean, that's something that he needs to do during the offseason. I think that the Buffalo Bills are going to try and negotiate with Tre'Davious White for a contract extension probably as soon as possible. As soon as the Buffalo Bills can try to get a contract extension, they're going to. But here's some of what Brandon Beane said. Any guy that's in Tre's situation that we want back, and obviously Tre's a guy we love and want back, you do look and try to find what the value is. So Brandon Beane talks about how this isn't only difficult from a GM perspective or from a Buffalo Bills management perspective, where you have to figure out not only what is the value today for the top NFL corner in the league, you have to figure out what it's going to be in 2 years, in 4 years, in 5 years, however long you want the contract extension to be. You have to figure out what the market's going to be for a top tier cornerback at that time, right? And that's not just a problem for Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills front office. That's also a problem, or maybe not a problem, but a difficult situation for Tre'Davious White's agent. So Tre'Davious White's agent has the same problem, where the Bills will say, hey, guess what? We think a cornerback will be worth this much in the NFL in 2-3 years. The agent will come back and say, I think that if cornerback in the NFL, top cornerback in the NFL, is going to be worth this much in 5 to 10 years. Right now, the highest paid cornerback in the NFL is Xavier Howard, making $15.1 million for the Miami Dolphins. I think Tre'Davious White's going to blow that number out of the water. Josh Norman second, Tremaine Johnson third, Xavier Rhodes fourth, and Patrick Peterson fifth on that list. Some of those guys, I look at Josh Norman. He's now a free agent. Obviously, he was cut by the Redskins. He's not going to be worth that $15 million number. Obviously, he was signed to that big contract after his big run with the Carolina Panthers. And obviously, there's some talk about bringing Greg Norman back. Obviously, it would be for a much smaller number than $15 million a year. But I heard the interview of Beane on the Howard Simon show. I didn't hear the interview. Like I said, I'm just reading it off my phone now, some of the transcript. But yeah, definitely some interesting news. And they also brought up a good point in the article that I read. Remember that with the new CBA, there's going to be some different things going on in the new CBA that might lead the Tre'Davious White's agent, the Buffalo Bills front office, to kind of hold off on contract talks. Remember, they're talking about a possible 17th game. That means they're talking about adding revenue to the players' pockets. And if that's the case, there is a bigger pool of money to play with if you're the Buffalo Bills. And Tre'Davious White, as one of the top corners, if not the top corner in the game, is going to want a piece of that money. He's going to want that money if there is that CBA extension that will give players or teams 48% of all revenue and owners 52. I believe right now it's 47 to 53, something like that. So obviously Tre'Davious White, his agent, may want to wait. And that's okay too, because right now it's a controlled contract. It's still his rookie contract. Probably definitely going to get that fifth-year team option if we need to. And then who knows? Maybe even we talk about franchise tag of Tre'Davious White. I personally don't want it to go that far. I want to see a contract extension as soon as possible on a guy like a Tre'Davious White, on a guy like a Tremaine Edmunds. I know Tremaine Edmunds has a year or two left to go, but these are some of the contract extensions that I want to see on that defensive side of the ball. Jordan Poyer deserves to have a contract extension there. Definitely Buffalo Fanatics did a video on that as well. So definitely some places we can go, but a lot depends on the new CBA. So we'll definitely see what happens in the new CBA when that gets signed, whether it's this new 17-game season when that goes into effect. We get the extra playoff game, maybe get that 17th game in a neutral site. How does that affect money? Obviously, there's a lot to talk about when you talk about contracts with that new CBA up in the air currently. So that's what we're talking about with the new CBA. That's what Brandon Beane was talking about with Tre'Davious White. He definitely made it sound like the Buffalo Bills are very interested and want to keep Tre'Davious White in Buffalo for the long term. So I want to see that extension as soon as possible. I'm sure a lot of you do too. Being alluded to some players, agents, teams waiting on the CBA to get passed before signing. They fear leaving money on the table, and that's fair. It's a fair point. You know, if you don't know the type of money that's going to be extended to you next year, the last thing you want to do is jump on an early deal and leave money on the table if you can prevent it. That's probably what Tre'Davious White's doing. And listen, I don't think if you're Brandon Beane, I don't think if you're the Buffalo Bills front office, you want to stiff Tre'Davious White any money. I think when Tre'Davious White signs this extension, he is going to be the highest paid cornerback in the league. But I think and again, it's all about rotation, right? As other corners become potential free agents, sign those extensions, they'll obviously surpass Tre'Davious White at some point. But maybe if Tre'Davious White continues to ball out the way he's been, we can work on another contract extension with Tre'Davious White. It's all a matter of how you play the game, where you fall in line as far as your contract ending compared to the next guys. I mean, there's definitely some contracts out there that are going to be big for the Buffalo Bills in re-signing, in getting this team up to that championship caliber type team and keeping them there. I think the job of Coach McDermott and Brandon Beane is not just getting us to the promised land, but keeping us on top for a consistent period of time. I mean, maybe not the Patriots type success, but you look at some teams around the NFL, talking about the Steelers, talking about the Ravens, talking about the some other teams. Kansas City's been really good for a while. Some of these teams, you want to have that type of consistency on a regular basis where you can expect to make the playoffs 3 out of every 5 years or whatever the case may be. I mean, obviously, you're not going to have a run like New England had. That just seems impossible at times, but you want to get as close as possible to that run. Scott Blakely comes in. Do you think the current proposal will get passed? I don't think the players are in a hurry to pass it. Obviously, the players' union had some sort of issues with it as far as the new CBA. It's now up for the players to vote, and I believe that this vote just needs a majority, right? This vote needs 50.1% of the vote instead of 66%. I think that's going to pass because I think the majority of players fall into that, lower salary type NFL players, which is still a pretty good salary. I did hear that this CBA makes it possible that by the end of the CBA, the minimum wage you could say for a 1 year contract would be over $1 million for these veteran players. So that to me is astronomical. I can't believe the numbers we're talking here. We're talking about billions upon billions of dollars in the NFL. I just can't talk about that kind of money because I have no idea what it's like. But if you're a player that's making a little under $1 million a year, you want this CBA to get signed. You don't want there to be a threat of a lockout. I don't think there's going to be a lockout at all. I think that the fact that we're already in the voting process, even if we have to tweak a couple things, is really a good sign. But I think if you're in that situation, you want this CBA to pass. You don't have to worry about the potential of a lockout of what you are going to do if there is a lockout in the NFL. So I think that there's more of those type players than there are star players like J.J. Watt, Russell Wilson, Richard Sherman, the guys who have spoken out against this agreement. So I think it's going to get done. Maybe some of the terminology needs to change. I mean, I did see some of the stuff that's going on as far as helping the previous players, the players that played prior to 1993, helping them get the help they need for their health issues after their NFL careers. So that's a good thing. So you got to take the good with the bad. Roger Goodell not being the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to player discipline. You got to love that. If you're an NFL player, you're getting extra money. You're getting an extra piece of the pie. So you got to love that. There's a lot of good things about this deal for NFL players. Now, again, I went on a little bit of a rant in a previous episode about I don't want to hear players coming back to me in 10, 15, 20 years talking about how the 17th game has really hurt them physically after their career's been over. Again, this is something that they decide on as well as the owner. So if they agree to it now, I don't want to hear them crying about it later saying, oh, we shouldn't have 17 games. That's just too much on the body, yada, yada, yada. You agree to it. If you agree to something, you don't complain about it later. I understand earlier the NFL hiding the CTE stuff with you. We've all seen the movie Concussion. I'm sure there was a reason for the lawsuit there. But if you vote to pass the 17th game, if you vote to pass an extra playoff game, if you vote to pass these things, if you vote to pass on whatever the case may be, playing an extra game on a neutral site, whatever the case may be, do not come back to me later and then complain about it. Just don't. I don't want to hear it. You talk about making millions upon millions of dollars. It's hard enough for me to hear about you complaining as is. Don't vote for something and then say, oh, I didn't want that anyway. I shouldn't have voted for that, whatever the case may be. Owners want it done to get busy on TV deals. Yeah, that's another reason why the players might hold out a little bit, right? Get the owners a little scared. Say, oh, you want to make that much more money on their TV deals? Well, then we want this much more money. We want a part of those TV deals. And I do believe that there is something in the CBA that talks about players and teams getting a piece of that pie as well with the TV deals if you talk about adding that 17th game. So be very interesting to see if it doesn't pass, why it doesn't pass. Again, and I think they talked about this on the radio when I was listening to ESPN radio last week. Everyone's talking about why, like the players tweeting out like J.J. Watt, people like that saying, no, a big pass for me, no thank you. Why? They're not coming out and saying why. Why is it a pass? What don't you like about it? What don't you like about it that your players union agreed to 10 months ago? You've been working on this contract for 10 months. You finally got done, and now all of a sudden you're saying, nah, you know what, we don't like it anymore. I mean, come on. You're not giving the owners a fair chance here. You're not, and do they deserve a fair chance? Maybe not. But that's just my opinion as far as the CBA. The current CBA offer is good up to the majority of low-priced players. Owners designed it that way to get it to pass. Should move in my opinion. So much money on the line. Absolutely. There's way too much money on the line for it not to get passed. So we're going to talk about the CBA, obviously more as we hear more about it. But what I want to talk about on here today was Leslie Frazier getting bumped up, getting a little bit of a promotion, moving on to be the assistant head coach of Coach McDermott of the Buffalo Bills. We talked a little bit about what that means as far as if Coach McDermott is unable to perform his duties and what that means for Leslie Frazier. What more does that put on Leslie Frazier's plate? Puts more of a full spec type game plan together for Leslie Frazier. He needs to know what's going on in all phases, even though he's going to focus on defense. So we'll see. The other players don't like the 17th game. Well, again, and here's my rationale. Here's my rationale. So you guys can listen to this. Let's say you don't like playing 17 games and you think it's too hard on the body, and we just can't be used to that, and yada 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 yada. Let's say you plan on playing in the NFL 12 seasons at 16 games. 12 seasons, 16 games. Why wouldn't you just make 11 seasons of 17 games? Same amount of games. Same amount of games on your body. Wear and tear, all that stuff. And then they're also talking about adding 2 players to the practice squad, adding 2 players to a roster, so that way you get some extra rests, you get more reps in practice to those practice squad players, to those other 2 players on the roster. I think the idea of playing a 17 game being that hard on the bodies, and besides that, you're trimming off some of those preseason games that you hate getting ready for, because even though the starters don't play in that 4th preseason game, their practice regimen is the same. So you're not adding weeks to the season. You're practicing the same in the preseason as you would for a regular season game, or at least you better be. You better be practicing the same. You get those rest days. We saw Lorenzo Alexander. We saw Frank Gore getting those rest days. Speaking of Frank Gore, news came out on him today that he does not plan to retire. Do you want to see Frank Gore back in a Buffalo Bills uniform next season? If Frank Gore does not retire, he would be an unrestricted free agent. So do you want to see Frank Gore back in a Buffalo Bills uniform next season, or would you like us to see maybe even keep TJ Yeldon, let him be on the team, pick up someone in the draft? There are other options out there, of course, but let me know in the comment section, yes or no, do you want to see Frank Gore back with the Buffalo Bills next season? Now he's kind of announced, or at least it's been rumored, that he will not be retiring. Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, came out and said he has no plans of retiring. He's actually been practicing, getting training with LaShawn McCoy during the offseason. We obviously thought that we'd see those 2 together in the backfield in Buffalo last year. It didn't quite happen that way. Maybe he's looking to move on to Kansas City and get a job there for a year under Andy Reid. Elliott comes in and says, I don't want Gore back, to be honest. Retired players like it since their pensions go up. Yeah, I think they're talking about adding $60 to $80 million to players' pensions. The average NFL player plays 3 years. New CBA appeals to those players. They get a bump in pay and greater chance to stick around longer. Absolutely. So they're inflating the wear and tear for negotiating reasons, in my opinion. Haven't heard a good argument yet. No, Scott, I agree with you. I think this is a great deal for everyone involved, including us, the fans, right? Including us, the fans. You get a 17th game. And this is what I heard on the radio. I don't know if this is true or not, but I hope that it is, because I think this is a great idea. Truth to Hearts, welcome to Believers Talk. Gore isn't being used, right? The only use him on obvious run situations, and you're right, and maybe that needs to, he knows to go to a team he knows how to use him better, and that might not be Brian Daboll, that might not be the Buffalo Bills. But here's what I heard on the radio about this possible 17th game, and here's what has me excited. So if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan right now, you're looking at the very for real possibility that you're playing 2 games in London this year, right? And now I hope for Jaguars fans' sakes that they're not both home games, but I've heard rumors that they're both home games, which means if you're a Jacksonville Jaguar ticket holder, season ticket holder, you get 6 games this year. Oh, you get the 2 London games, but you have to be able to afford to fly to London, which hopefully the coronavirus is over by then, because by then they wouldn't let anyone fly anywhere if it's still going on. But you have to be able to fly to London, be able to pay for a hotel, and then be able to use those tickets that you get, right? So let's pretend there's 17 games. And then you have 8 games at home, 8 games on the road, and every team has 1 neutral site game. Now, for the Buffalo Bills, that probably means more games in Toronto. We'll probably get a makeshift Toronto series again, right? And we know we hated that when it happened. But imagine we hated it because we were losing a home game. We're not losing a home game here. You have 8 home games, 8 road games, and then 1 game where it's a neutral site. So you're talking about opening up the international market, even though I never liked the idea of opening up the international market, but Jackson moving to London eventually, in my opinion, maybe not if this deal passes. Our running back two needs to be a little more in the tank. Anthony comes in and says, talking about Frank Gore. Obviously, I think we want a younger running back too. Fans don't need to pay for a fourth preseason game, which is meaningless except the cost of the ticket. So think about this. You have 8 home games still. And then you have one neutral site game. Opens up Vancouver, opens up Tokyo, Japan, opens up a whole bunch, Mexico City, more games there, Toronto, Ottawa, some of these places that don't have football. You can even bring a football game back to St. Louis, right? Bring game back to St. Louis. Bring game back to San Diego. Bring some of these teams, these markets back into play. And then you're just creating more revenue for the NFL. I think it's a really good idea. I'm not sure if that's in the CBA, but then every team has one neutral site game. That means that you have 16 neutral site games. Now, you can still have 3 or 4 of those games in London. You can have 2 or 3 of those games in Mexico City if they know how to treat a field. You can have one of those games in Vancouver. You can have one of those games in Toronto. You can have one of those. It just Tokyo. It just opens up possibilities. You can even have one of these games down under in Australia. You can do whatever you want. That was a terrible Australian accent. I understand. I'm not from there. I have no idea. If one of you are from Australia, I didn't mean to offend you. I promise. Truth to hearts, people forget that Gore was carrying the team when Singletary was hurt. He was the lead running back. I don't know if you would say carrying the team. I think he rushed for 100 yards in one of those games, but it wasn't exactly like he was carrying the ball over 20 times. He was definitely serviceable. I'm not saying he wasn't, but those times that he was out, yeah, Singletary was out. He definitely carried the load for the team, and I believe went 2-1 in that stance when Singletary was out too. So he did a good job. I'm not saying he didn't, but it's not, again, like he was the only reason why we were winning those games. One of those games, that Titans game, we won 14-7, and a lot of people thank Duke Williams for that win. One of those games, I believe, was against week 3, would have been against Cincinnati, and that had a lot to do with that interception by Tre White at the end of the game. John Brown had a couple big plays in that game. I think Cole Beasley had a touchdown in that game as well. So, again, I'm not saying Frank Gore did not do a good job. He did. And there's a reason why he's 3rd all-time on the rushing list. Great running back, but, again, is that the type of running back the Buffalo Bills need right now? Again, you talk about how we didn't use Frank Gore properly. That might be right, but let's give Frank Gore a chance to play the way he knows how to play. I mean, he did have over 600 rushing yards for the Buffalo Bills this season, so there's nothing knock on that for a 36-year-old running back going to be 37 next season. Again, the wheels might not be falling off, but they're definitely getting flat. You know what I mean? There's a little puncture hole in them, and they're definitely getting a little flat. Gore exposed that New England couldn't stop the run. He had a good game against New England. I forget his exact stats, but we still lost that game. We still lost that game, but that's not because of Frank Gore. Definitely not because of Frank Gore. But again, let's take him somewhere. Let him go somewhere where he is used properly. That's all I'm saying. I would love to see him come out and get another 600, 700, 800-yard season. Again, the Buffalo Bills need to have a running back there that can catch the ball out of the backfield. That isn't so obvious what we're doing when he is back there, right? And again, the Buffalo Bills did that to themselves. I'm not saying it's Frank Gore's fault at all, but the Buffalo Bills definitely did that to themselves. Daniel comes in. Gore was averaging about 4 yards a carry early when Singletary was out. Last half of the season, he was averaging 2 yards or less. You do have to look at those numbers towards the end of the season. Now, was it because Buffalo wasn't feeding him the ball as much and he couldn't get a rhythm going? Or was it because we're getting to the later part of the season, he just didn't have it in the tank anymore? One guy who does not have to worry about the 17-game season is Frank Gore. If the new CBA passes, obviously the 17-game season will not take effect. Some are saying as early as 2021. So he has another season under his belt before we get to that 17-game season. Be interesting to see how many more seasons Frank Gore has left in him. Probably allow 1, maybe a 2-year contract in there. But I don't see him passing Emmitt Smith for the all-time rushing record, over 3,000 yards away at this point, almost exactly 3,000 yards away at this point. Would need a few more seasons to get that done. Don't see that happening, and he's still a few maybe 1,000, 1,500 yards away from Walter Payton as well. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen either. But hey, he's top 3 now, right? He's top 3, so good for him. So we talked about Leslie Frazier. We talked about him moving up to assistant head coach. We talked about the other coaches who got their promotion as well. Talked a little bit about Tre White and the talk that Brandon Beane had on the radio this afternoon about the possibilities of a contract extension. I don't expect to hear anything about a contract extension until after the new CBA passes. We talked about the new CBA, and then we talked a little bit more about Frank Gore. I would rather get rid of Yeldon and draft a running back and keep Gore. Well, again, Gore is a free agent, so would love to bring him back on and keep him that way. But you have to make sure the numbers right? I mean, again, if you want Gore as the mentor, then there's no guarantees. Truth to hearts, there's no guarantees that Brian Daboll will treat him right this time around. That the Buffalo Bills will use Frank Gore properly this time around, and then we're just upset that Frank Gore is here and we're not using him properly. So I would love to see the Buffalo Bills use Frank Gore the way he needs to be used, and obviously not just have him in there in obvious run situations. We'd love to see us pick up a young running back, whether that be an undrafted free agent, or whether that be maybe someone in free agency who just hasn't gotten that right break, hasn't gotten that right option, or we draft to play with one of our late round picks. We'll see what happens. Again, guys, I will be live tomorrow. We'll talk more about the NFL Combine, and we'll talk more about the NFL Draft, of course, as I normally go live on Thursdays. Just some activity on One Bills Drive. I wanted to keep you guys up to date. Well, Daniel, again, Gore doesn't need to go. Right now he's an unrestricted free agent. If the Buffalo Bills want Gore back, they're going to have to pursue him to have him come back. And at this point, I trust the Bills front office, where they keep Gore or they let him go, or they don't try or sign a new contract for Frank Gore. I trust this front office to do the right thing. So again, guys, I will be live tomorrow, so make sure you join me then as we talk about the NFL Combine that's now ended on Sunday, and we'll talk more about the draft coming up, obviously, and we'll talk whatever Buffalo Bills stuff you guys want to talk about. Again, I always enjoy the chat, so make sure you keep that going and just join the conversation. Again, if you're not watching this live, you're watching the tape, just go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm tripping over my own words now. I need a drink. But go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to Billievers Talk, as we keep you updated on all the breaking Buffalo Bills news. Congratulations to all the coaches who either got a new job or got promoted, including Coach Leslie Frazier, now assistant head coach to Coach McDermott. Congratulations go out to the Buffalo Bills as they continue to try to extend Tre White. Hopefully we get this new CBA done so that we can get that done. Congratulations goes out to Frank Gore, having a great career. Looks like he's going to extend that for at least one more season. So again, guys, I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow, and we can talk, like I said, NFL Combine. We'll have a good time. I'll talk to you then. I'll see you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.